one of the most unique players I've ever evaluated. That's how General Manager Steve Keim described Clemson linebacker Isaiah Simmons. Cardinals grabbed Simmons with the 8th overall pick. Once again, defense, the name of the game here in the offseason. MJ, as we welcome you to a special edition post day one of the 2020 NFL Draft. Cards Cover 2 presented by Hyundai, proud partner of the Arizona Cardinals. And, this is what we predicted. We got the player wrong, but we got the right side of the ball. And our mock draft earlier in the week, we thought Derek Brown might be the selection, but the Cardinals go with Isaiah Simmons, who can play all over the field.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And Peter King, when he did his only mock draft earlier in the week, he said, I list this guy as defensive player. I look at him as a hybrid player. And, when 3 quarterbacks went off the board, Craig, you started thinking, all right, when are we going to see some defensive players? Obviously, Chase Young, and then we get some quarterbacks. And then Derek Brown, obviously, was a guy that, you would start building a defense. You're going to build around a guy like that, especially if you're bringing in a new coordinator. And so all of a sudden, you wonder about the Cardinals where they're going to trade down. And Steve did get some calls, according to his presser afterwards, but they did not reach. They did not go take a player for a need. They took the best available player on his board. And according to Keim, he was one of those top 5 guys. So obviously it was an easy decision for him where the work was put in. But obviously when you're on the clock, you got to make that tough decision.
Yeah, a lot of people believe Simmons was going to be a top 5, maybe even a top 3 selection. He dropped to the benefit of the Cardinals. We'll get into why he did, but just the versatility of Simmons. And I know this is a player that you've kind of gone back and forth with, and I did honestly as well. But when you look at what he did at Clemson, and I love this stat, he played more than 100 snaps at 5 different positions: inside linebacker, slot corner, free safety, outside linebacker, and strong safety. He has no favorite position. It's now a matter of the defensive coaches trying to figure out where's the best place on the field, given that week's opponent, given that week's series, given a particular play, depending on down and distance. So the versatility, and that's something we hear a lot when we talk about either side of the ball. But I think now, if you're the Cardinals defensively, you've got to like what you've been able to do, adding in free agency, and now here on day one, adding a defensive standout.
Yeah, and I thought Daniel Jeremiah, who does a great job, obviously pinch hitting for Mike Mayock, who's now with the Raiders. I mean, he talked about it. This is a guy that you could put on George Kittle. This is a spy you could put on Russell Wilson. You look at the Niners, maybe he's a guy you put in the box to stop that run game. We know Garoppolo is going to throw a few maybe your way. Obviously, you got to catch it there. And as you pointed out, opposing offensive coordinators, they're going to have to figure it out. We talk about when you break the huddle, you got to learn where Chandler Jones is. Where's Patrick Peterson? Where's Buda Baker? Because he's a guy that can come off the edge. Now, all of a sudden, you got to put a hat on a guy like Isaiah Simmons. And, I think he's going to move around, obviously, but I think he'll line up with next to Hicks. Obviously, competition with Campbell. If you want to get an extra pass rusher out there, if you want him to cover a tight end. So this is a guy that can do a lot of things. And, I don't know what the comp is, maybe Derwin James. But obviously, we got a chance to talk or see and listen to him at the combine. And I think he mentioned it on the call with the Arizona media, is that he kind of tailors his game after Tyrann Mathieu.
Yeah, Mathieu and Derwin James, the 2 players that he mentioned that he modeled his game after. You bring up the tight end position, and if you remember at the scouting combine in Indianapolis, that was something he brought up on his own as far as his ability to cover the tight ends. He's got the size, 6'4", 238, and he's got the athleticism to where maybe most inside linebackers don't have that speed to cover a tight end or the size. Certainly some safeties don't have that type of size, but he believes because of how he fits, it certainly benefits the Cardinals with regard to how they might be able to fix what ailed them a year ago, and that's covering the tight end position.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And then you just look at his wingspan and his speed. I mean, even if he can't get there, the fact that he's going to be able to deflect some balls, we always talk about sacks, but we know we want to get the quarterback off his spot. Hurries, pressures, and knockdowns lead to turnovers. So I think his if he can't make the play, you're going to see him like a tree out there because of his arm length and his wingspan. So that's another thing that, obviously people are going to focus on, his agility and his versatility. And he's, we're looking at players now that have pointless positions in the NFL, and he fits that profile.
Oh, absolutely. And I think as a defensive coordinator, whether that's Vance Joseph or whomever it is, when you have someone like an Isaiah Simmons and you can leave him on the field, regardless of down and distance, now you don't have to substitute. And now the defense or now the offense, they don't know what you're going to run or how you're going to line up. And if you want to get into a hurry up offense, the defense is right there. And as far as substitutions, that's not a big deal. If you can keep all 11 players on the field at the same time, I think that gives a distinct advantage to the defense, because now the offense has to kind of guess as far as what you're going to throw at them.
And I think you mentioned this at the combine, but he played 9 different positions on defense. I don't think he played D tackle. Obviously teams, they were playing like a 2-5-4 maybe. When teams play a 3-3-5, they play a 4-2-5. But maybe the Cardinals will let him put his hand in the dirt, because you got Jones and you got Kennard, and if you get some coverage on the other end, he could be a guy that can rush the quarterback. So, again, he's going to, last year Kyler Murray won the Rookie of the Year. I know, usually it goes to a guy that puts up numbers, and he can put up numbers as long as he can stay healthy. So I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I think he'll be in that conversation because he's a plug-and-play guy from day one, Craig.
Absolutely. And you talk about the numbers. How about the numbers that he put up at the combine, and why a lot of people believed he was going to be a top 3 pick, maybe to the Lions at number 3 at the scouting combine? A 39-inch vertical jump, an 11-foot broad jump, and a 4.39 40-yard dash. We have not seen those type of numbers from a player of Simmons' size, talking about 6'4", 238. And those numbers all of a sudden had Simmons rocketing up draft boards, to where if you're the Cardinals, you're very, very fortunate that you have him with the 8th overall pick.
Yeah, and, we both like Derek Brown. And to me, there was, besides Chase Young, okay, we knew that unless the Redskins were overwild or they were going to take a quarterback, he was going to go there. So really the conversation became Okudah, and I didn't think he would drop. I really didn't, just because of the position. And then Derek Brown, he could have went anywhere. But when you get 3 quarterbacks and Chase Young, now we're at, the 5th guy. And then, obviously, the Dolphins, they made a decision what they were going to do there. So the fact is that when Derek Brown was picked, I'm sure the Cardinals were just thrilled the fact that he was there, because he could have gone earlier. Okudah could have gone out a little bit later. And Brown, I think he went exactly where people thought. And that was a team I was worried about. And then obviously the Cardinals felt like, you know what, we don't need to trade down. We'll worry about the second round tomorrow. And I'm telling you, on paper, when that pick comes up, 40th overall,
yep,
I'm sending out a tweet of DeAndre Hopkins and thanking the Texans.
Yeah, because it's going to be a long wait on Friday for that 72nd overall pick in the 3rd round, when the Cardinals are next on the clock, unless something changes between now and the start of the 2nd round. But as we tape this here on Thursday night, that's the next time we hear the Arizona Cardinals are officially on the clock. As you mentioned, Keim, during his Zoom conference call with the media, he needed, in order for Simmons to be available at number 8, he needed to see a run of either quarterbacks or offensive linemen, and they got the run of quarterbacks. Yeah, Joe Burrow went number 1. Tua Tagovailoa went to number 5 to the Miami Dolphins. Smokescreen galore as far as the talk late in this process that the Dolphins might be looking at an offensive tackle. But then all of a sudden, number 6 to the Chargers was Justin Herbert out of Oregon, the 3rd quarterback off the board. And then that left Derek Brown to the Panthers. And, of course, the Cardinals take Isaiah Simmons. At that point, if the Panthers had gone Simmons, my guess is, without knowing, that the Cardinals would have said, we'll take Derek Brown.
Yeah, or one of those tackles. Obviously, there are still, they still have 5 draft picks depending on what shakes out in the next couple of days. So I got to think they're going to address the offensive line at some point. Josh Jones is out there, but I don't anticipate he's going to be there in the third round. Maybe they go interior. Maybe they feel like they're good at tackles. Obviously, they felt like between Justin Murray and Marcus Gilbert and Josh Miles, that wasn't a necessarily need going in. And again, they went best available player. Ken Wisenhunt did the same thing with Patrick Peterson, because if the Bengals didn't take A.J. Green, the Cardinals were going to take him. And so Wisenhunt said, well, we're going to take the next best player. And then if you want to fast forward, the year they took Hassan Reddick, they needed an outside linebacker. So that was a need pick, even though they had interest in Malik Hooker. He went a little bit later, and Marshawn Lattimore went 2 picks before the Cardinals. That was a draft with Watson and Mahomes. So different drafts. But when you do what you did in the offseason and what you were able to do last year, just kind of building the foundation, this allowed them to say strictly stick to your board and go best available player.